It's time to start telling our own stories. I'm Steve Kellums, and welcome to Blue Canary. Season 3 is almost here. The Blue Canary podcast team has been hard at work creating new episodes for all of our subscribers and casual listeners. In just 2 short weeks, we'll start dropping brand new episodes, and we have some great interviews for you. Here are a few teasers of what's coming on this season of Blue Canary.
And the ops manager was very open with the sergeant and saying, hey, you might not want to spend the first 4 hours of your shift eating your lunch, reading the newspaper in your windowed office adjacent to the communications center floor, because your people are working mandatory overtime shifts and it's really tough right now. Sergeant says, I don't give a fuck what they think. They complain about everything anyway. That's a direct quote. Like that in my assessment encapsulates what's wrong in the most egregious cases. You have someone who doesn't want to be there. They're not open. They're not receptive. And they have the ultimate decision-making power to make life better. You might be unsurprised to learn that center had a toxic work culture. Had difficulty with retention in hiring and recruitment. All the things that have become the norm.
That was Adam Tim, best-selling author and owner of The Healthy Dispatcher. We'll be talking about dispatch and the challenges faced by 911 operators. Here's another clip. This one is from a great interview with Michael Brown, a retired DEA agent.
But then you look at state and local. The single patrol officer who goes into a 911 call in an inner city community that has a high rate of shooting, say for Chicago, for example. That officer has no idea what's waiting for him at the end of that 911 call. It could be a domestic, it could be shots fired, it could be gang violence. So he or she is walking into a complete unknown and then has to react spontaneously to a perceived threat. And even for black officers, I worked with black officers in Detroit, and they had the same mentality as white officers. We're going into highly volatile, violent communities where people will shoot at police officers, people will try and kill police officers as a rite of passage for gang members to resist and to fight the authorities. It's a very well-known fact. And I think last year there were over 51 officers who were basically assassinated, who were killed by individuals who were planning to kill police officers.
Mike goes into detail about the war on drugs and his experiences fighting that war for over 32 years. This clip is from one of my favorite interviews this season. I spent some time talking with Jim Glennon, owner of Caliber Press, about training and use of force.
When you look at the Washington Post, the New York Times, and things like that, they always say, yes, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. Look, this is the first time in Minnesota in the last 40 years or something, I'm making that up, but that an officer has been charged. What they imply is that police are getting away with murder, and obviously that's not true.
Right.
I pay for the Washington Post, even though I don't really subscribe to their opinions, because they track every fatal police shooting in the United States. They have since 2015. It's called Fatal Force. And over the last 6 years, on average, law enforcement officers in the United States have shot and killed 988 people a year, on average, 988. We have about 300 million contacts with people. And that's not exaggerated. In fact, I saw one guy say it's about 450 million contacts with people. So if you take 300 million and then divide that by 988, you literally come up with the number 0.001 or something to that effect. It's just, so we really don't have this epidemic of police violence that the press and activists and many politicians presume that we do.
That's just a little taste of what's to come on Season 3 of Blue Canary. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so you don't miss an episode. If you're finding us for the first time, check out our episodes from Season 1 and Season 2, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Season 3 is going to be great, and don't worry, there'll be another Halloween episode. And that's the story we have to tell. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm curious what questions you're getting asked. What isn't the news covering? What story needs to be told? Connect with me at bluecanarypodcast@gmail.com.